All right, Buck Up Podcast, episode 8. This one we got a food plot episode with a full diagram breakdown. The man Tony T. Okay. So we last year we had several different food plot sources consisting of beans, corn, Milo, like a food plot mix with turnips. What else was in it?
Oh, we had clover back in there.
What else was in the food plot mix?
Oh, winter rye. I don't even remember what all was in it.
Okay. Anyways.
Because it didn't grow too well.
Yeah, mostly turnips is what it turned into. I guess we had mentioned that on the last episode we did. Sunflowers. That was in theory for doves. That was pretty much it, wasn't it?
I think so.
Okay. Do you want to go over where stuff was last year?
Do you want me to write it on there and then take it off and then?
Yeah, I guess we can erase it afterwards.
Okay, so start up here. We had basically to this area here, all the way across here. All this here was in Milo. And it came over to, I don't know, probably this area here because I ran out of Milo, but I still had some corn left over from last year, so I did this area here in corn. This here, this spot was a clover patch for several years, but the problem was
missing an L there, boss.
Where? Oh, sorry.
Cover.
Clover.
Okay.
The problem has been Mother Nature's kind of burned that up, and it hasn't been very successful. This area here, I had in beans. And then this little area here is where we did the turnips. This area here we had in sunflowers, and then this area here was in beans.
Okay.
I think that's got everything.
Yeah. Probably how you do that.
So this here, it was in fescue. This was just a grass area.
Yeah. I guess to make note too, like throughout, of course, we didn't really run. Did you run feed? Or
some last year, beginning of last year, and then.
Yeah, okay. But feeders here, out in front of the buck hut, and in the middle of that fescue.
Which basically, right there was a feeder, and then there was one right there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, none of those plots are very big though, really, are they? Like, the largest one is probably the Milo.
Well, I've kind of broken it all down. So this, if you took, like, this whole entire area here is about 4 acres. So this here is about 2. By the time you broke an edge and went up in here, it's about 2. If you brought this down, that's 2. This is a little over 2, like 2.35. This up here is about 3 acres. This is about 2 acres. So it's all roughly around 2 to 3 acres, except for some of the really small stuff.
So, I mean, that'd really be your average game plot for what most people are planting anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. So what didn't you like about last year?
I mean, everything grew really well. I did, before bow season hit, I did brush hog some of it down, just to have more openings to be able to possibly see the wildlife. The thing that I don't like as the year went on was all the openness. It's like a lot of ag fields. Once you take the crops out, there's absolutely nothing there. And, the two things that deer need are
food and cover.
And I'll tell you what, a prime example was like last night. My house is right here. This area over here is pretty much where we hunt. Jacob's got a stand like right in here. There's another one here. There's a mobile one here. I usually hunt from the buck hut. There's another one down here. But generally, this is where we hunt. So from my house to the buck hut, it's 215 yards. So you can imagine how far it is, over to here. And about half of this is kind of a rolling hill. So the back side of this you can't see from my house if there are any animals out there. So last night, it's an hour before dark. I decided I'm going to take my German Shepherd out to go to the bathroom. As soon as I get out on my front porch, I look over here, and here comes 4 deer over the knoll. And of course, what do they see? Well, me walking out with this big black dog. Stood there the whole entire time while she went to the bathroom. I call her, she comes running back over. I take her back inside, and as soon as I get her back inside, the deer scatter. So that's one thing that I want to prevent this year is I want to put in some barriers to where these deer can't see what's going on over here.
Yeah.
I mean, they may be able to hear stuff, but if they can't see that, then we don't want that to happen. And the same thing, like I was talking about when I got that 10 point this past year, I was standing here.
Give a shit if it gets messed up. All right, following technical difficulty. So
back to not wanting the deer to see me from over here. But the 10 point that I got this past year, that's what happened with it that morning. Here I step out on my front porch and he's standing right here looking at me, watches me for a couple minutes, and then he just full blast over here. And here I figured that deer's gone forever, but thankfully showed back up that night. But even instances like that, I don't want that to happen. When we built this house, I've got a window right in front of my recliner, so I can sit there and I can watch out my window and see whatever I want to see. Thought that'd be cool, which it is cool, but I don't think it's going to be appropriate for the deer and the animals, period.
At that point, was the milo already out?
I still had a strip right through here.
Gotcha.
So this was open to where we could see down through there from here, but then there was still a small strip of milo through here, and he just blasted behind the milo and I guess went back in there, bedded down. So that's the biggest things. Is I want to get some more cover in here to block off some of this stuff. So this is my neighbor's house. The other neighbor lives over here. This is the county road down here, and this is our drive that comes up for all of us, and then we break off here with our driveway to get to our house. So I want to put in some barriers to block off whatever the neighbors are doing, or if they're driving up and down the road, and also want to do some to block off anything that I want to do over here, and then put in some different food plots that are going to be green all year long, so the deer definitely have food all year long. And I think that was the biggest thing. This year we had some beans on the ground up here, and for the first time in a long time, the deer were actually up in here in the front eating it.
What do you consider all year long? Like summer to
as long as possible, yeah.
Because the next few months, it's gonna be warm out and stuff, but there's not gonna be any food around.
There won't be here, but with what I'm gonna plant, there will be.
Okay, so we'll get into that in a second. One other thing I want to acknowledge, because we talk about this a lot, and this property runs perfectly as a square, north, south, east, and west. So if you hear us talk about the direction of where something is, just know that this is north and this is south, because I know that's something we mention a lot.
Right on there.
That's fine. I can't write with the marker. I'm left-handed.
And I'm smearing stuff off, so it is what it is. We're doing the best we can. This is a heck of a lot better than this little piece of paper I've got here, so.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to roll into what you have in store for next year or this year?
Well, the other thing I want to add too, that because not only has my stuff changed over the years, this is a big piece of property on the neighbors. How many acres does he have?
It's 165, and it's a perfect rectangle of 100, and then 65 acres of woods that's past that.
So all this here used to be in CRP for the longest time. And within the past 3 years, I think, they've now started farming this. This other piece over here is another 40-acre strip that is basically square like this. It's mostly open. They used to farm it also. Now it's back in CRP.
You kind of have the opposites.
Yeah. Because this piece here it's 40 acres. There's 11 acres of woods, and then there's 29 acres of open ground. So
this one here, it's pretty much always since they started planting it like beans and wheat, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of how they rotate that.
Well, I think they had beans in this past year, and now they're going back in with corn this year.
Oh, really?
They did wheat 1 year, and that was it.
Oh, okay.
But I heard that they're definitely going back in with corn this year. So
It's been in corn before, or?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't.
1 year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't remember that.
I guess it's been 3 years since they've been doing it, because the first year they had it in beans and then corn, and then it was in beans this year, so they'll be going back in with corn.
I mean, other than these two right here, like as far as other outlying areas like close to us, these are kind of really the only two main food sources.
There's only
Like, there's
there's 3 other places that I know of that have been in some crops. There's another small area just up the road here on Quinn.
right.
And then right across from Quinn, there's 100 and some acres. It's mostly open. That
Right.
the same people that plant this started planting that at the same time because they took it out of CRP. So a lot more ag coming in there. And then there's another up the other county road. There's a 100-acre strip there.
Yeah, but as far as like we've got this main wood section to the north, it's probably a couple thousand acres coming directly out of that. This is probably one of the closest food sources. So just another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I want to see what you have in mind. I've been wanting to see this for like 2 weeks now.
Okay. Well, I got to get rid of some of this then. Here, that has an eraser on it. You can
Yeah,
erase.
speed it up a little bit.
And I've done a lot of research this year just because I wanted to change this to hopefully this year make it better, get more deer in here, have more opportunities throughout the year. Just this past year, as we said on one of the other shows, that it was really rough not seeing any deer, any bucks other than young bucks, and I want something in here that's going to last a lot longer. And we just moved up here this past year, so now I'm going to be able to devote a lot more time to getting this the way I want to get it. Actually, the year before we bought this ground, all this used to be in CRP also, and then it came due, it came out, and then they ended up having a farmer planting all of it. So when we actually bought the property, we had to abide by the contract that they had going on for him planting what he had planted. So we had him do it for a few years. Well, things didn't go as well as we had liked, so we ended up, doing away with that. And I talked with my wife, and we decided that I was just gonna, since we were hunting here, there wasn't any house or anything yet. We just go up here and stay on the weekends to hunt. That then I would just plant it myself, plant whatever. Because the other thing is I could plant it or get my crops in whenever I wanted to. The later, the better, to make sure they still grow though. That way the food source was in there a lot longer. And then I could either take them out or leave them in, to do whatever I wanted to in the end too.
Yeah.
So
the other limitation in doing that too is like it's like monocrop. So everything was in either beans or corn. So you don't really have, like, your hunting strategy is basically just hunting over that one food source that's everywhere.
Yeah.
And majority of our hunting's bow season, so it's really hard to target a specific area of how they're using it and whatnot. So
well, and that's what changes too is because we hunt mostly this area here. Now that this is in ag, in spring and summer this is full of whatever crop they have in there. So even though I try to alternate what they have in there, and some they're going to stick to where that big food source is spring and summer long. It doesn't matter how much of what you think you've got in here is going to be good. For the most part, they're going to spend it in those big ag fields.
Right. I guess the other thing too to consider with like the previous way you're doing it is like it's really hard to keep a good relationship with a farmer that on a small piece of ground and you're constantly like cutting back the amount that they're getting to farm. Like it's kind of less worth their time at that point. I don't know. It's probably not the best way to go on a small piece of ground.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did it. It helped pay the taxes.
Yeah.
So, that was the only thing, but oh well.
Right. Okay.
It didn't last too long.
What's new?
There was something else I was going to say. So I this year I want to do away with most of the, whether it's milo, corn, and beans, and put in some grasses or whatever that's going to help put more nutrients back in the ground, to where I don't have to disc the ground as much to hurt the soil. By doing that, also, I won't have to fertilize as much, because you get that organic matter in the top, and then it makes the soil a lot better. So that's part of that. So let me get into where I'm wanting to put stuff.
I want to go ahead and make a point too.
Sure.
You could
I'm gonna draw.
I just want to tell you this, that like that really goes with like my personal beliefs as well too, because like I've made many points and whatnot about like the food industry and how terrible all of this mass agriculture, like your main crops like beans and all the stuff you just said, you basically want to do less of. So like you got to think about the way it's changing our food. Like we have this big notion for grass-fed beef, or like less antibiotics and all this stuff, and like pork and beef too, like everything. But then our wild game, like they're not eating the same stuff that they were eating hundreds of years ago either. It's all genetically modified seeds. Roundup, Monsanto sprayed the hell out of it. Like, it's just another thing a lot of people don't consider. Like, yes, you are eating wild game, but it's not the same wild game that we had 200 years ago.
Oh yeah, because the soil has been messed with so much.
Yeah, it's so many different components.
And like I said, I've researched a lot of people doing this. Some of them I've liked, some of them I haven't. I've gotten a lot of information both ways. And that's what, a lot of them say too, is if you actually think back several hundred years ago, or even Lewis and Clark time, nobody was working up ground to plant anything.
Right.
They were actually getting stuff to grow then and even in rocky, terrible terrain, and they weren't spraying stuff. They weren't disking nothing, but they were still getting stuff to grow.
Well, a lot of that too now is the dependency that these modified seeds have on those other chemicals. Like they've made them to where you have to do that, otherwise they won't grow.
Yeah.
So maybe the corn 200 years ago, you didn't even have to spray for.
Well, like you said, we've messed with stuff so much that, like all this hybrid stuff, and it's not always for the best.
No.
The hybrid stuff.
There have been studies to show that there's like an inverse effect by, like pretty much we're having to use more Roundup each year because the seeds are evolving or adapting to become resistant to Roundup. So there's a graph, and it's like literally every year you have to spray more Roundup on these seeds to get them to grow, because they're becoming that weed resistant.
Yeah, and just having to be careful where you spray your Roundup, because there's that stuff in a wind carries and can kill other stuff.
Think about their freaking water source.
That, and I've actually, it's probably about right in here. Last year I planted an apple tree right there. Planted several other ones in here. But that apple tree right there was the only one that grew, still alive. But even that too, you like what I'm doing here, and I've got some more trees I just picked up yesterday that I'm going to end up putting in the ground as soon as it dries up a little bit. And they're going to go out here in this area. This is all going to be in spots where I'm going to have to spray a little to kill the weeds out, because if I don't manage the weeds, then none of this stuff's going to grow right. It's got to get to its full potential. So a lot of these trees, I'm going to have to cover them up and protect these trees, just because that Roundup's just going to wipe them out. It's potent stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with this. So this area here, this is because it's over here by the.
You want to pause for a second?
Sure.
Why don't you go ahead and re-mention what you told me earlier about like the Roundup stuff this year?
Oh, and actually this was this morning, I called our local co-op, which is where I usually get my Roundup, and just getting pricing on it and see if they had the stuff in stock because it won't be long and I'm going to need to be spraying. And, I asked, if they had it and how much it was. And, and actually the guy said, "Are you sitting down?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, this can't be good." So he goes, "This stuff is it's more than double than the price, that the cost it was last year." Last year, I think for a 2.5 gallon jug, I paid, I want to say it was somewhere around $70-$80 for a 2.5 gallon jug of Buccaneer. So this year it is actually $160 for a 2.5 gallon jug of Buccaneer. I mean, it's just, the price has increased that much. It's just crazy. I don't know how farmers are going to be able to afford, they get them big totes of Roundup to be able to spray, and that's just nuts. I don't see how farmers are going to make any money this year. And then I haven't checked yet on corn and bean prices to see how much you're going to pay for that this year. So, which I'm going to, because I may put a little in, but I don't know.
Everything's gonna be completely different. This is all the more reason to get away from that stuff, I would say, if you can in a situation like this, because it's gonna cost you out the ass.
Yeah, which my wife's probably going to kill me because I bought a new seed drill this past year that I probably won't use that much. So we'll keep that on the down low. But so anyway,
just tell you used it to plant other stuff.
Yeah, I used it. Take it out there and get it a little dirty.
Drill some grass.
So come spring, probably in May. More towards the end of May is probably when I'm gonna put the sunflowers back in here. We're trying to bring in some doves, which funny part, last year we did that. The patch didn't grow too well. And this was another thing too that I wanted to bring up. Before I moved here and had all this stuff in crops, it was hard to make the time to be able to get up here to be able to spray all this stuff to where it grew to its potential. So I had stuff in weeds, didn't turn, it was a waste of money.
A house. You had a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, it just didn't work out very well. So yeah, that was bad. So the sunflowers, the same thing. They got full of weeds. They didn't grow to potential and wasn't the greatest. We didn't see a whole lot of doves during season. And funny how it was deer season and there's,
everywhere
50 doves out here in the Milo field. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to do some changes there to be able to get those doves in here. And
we positive though, we did learn we have a nice and healthy pigeon population too.
Which they left. I don't know where they went, but hey, yeah, there were a lot of pigeons.
If we can get them in here, I'll eat one of them too.
Took some shots at them. So this line here, this is my gate that I can access if I wanted to bring a combine or something in here, is why it was there, off the county road. So this first line here, this is going to be tall grass. I'm probably going to put switchgrass in there because it grows really tall. Another thing too, as long as you maintain the weeds in that, get it to where it's good and established, it'll take off and you won't have a problem. Yeah. You just really have to maintain it really well. And the reason why I want that there is, of course, because of this county road. People driving up and down this road.
Right.
If there are deer out here like they were this past year, I don't want vehicles and stuff spooking them, or I'm guilty of it because I was able to see them. I'd pull up here and here, season's over and there's these bucks standing out there, still got the rack. So I want to stop and see them. If I didn't get a good glimpse, I'd back up. Well, I don't want to spook the deer, so.
I will make a point on that too, because I had looked it up last year. I was curious about what would be like the tallest growing grass that we could put there, and like prairie cordgrass will actually grow quite a bit taller, like a foot or two taller than switchgrass a lot of times. But like for your price, switchgrass is always going to be your best way to go on that, because anything else is just astronomically more expensive.
Well, and the other thing too that I've looked into, even switchgrass, switchgrass is pretty expensive, and actually right now it's getting really hard to get. A lot of people are out of it. But with switchgrass, you don't have to replant that every year.
Right.
You can put that in there, and as long as you maintain it really well by keeping the weeds out of it, you could get a good switchgrass stand for 4 to 5 years before you have to do anything with it again. There's some other ones that we looked into, like the Egyptian grass. You got to plant it every year.
Right.
Plot screen. you got to plant it every year.
Right.
You know, granted that stuff does grow, yeah, big and tall, but I don't want to have to replant that stuff every year.
It's kind of a wasted cost for.
Yeah, put that stuff in there and be done with that. So I'll stay with the tall grass as far as the switchgrass. I'm just going to do TG because I'm not drawing out or writing out switchgrass every time. So that's going to be there. So this basically this area right here is going to be tall grass, and that area there, because I want to block off anything from over here, what the neighbor's doing. Like I said, vehicles up and down the road, block that off. Another area is going to be over here. Now from here we have a path we walk that comes out here to get to the big to the buck hut. So here I want to bring this down to this path. It'd be another row of tall grass that, you know, if there's deer over in here, it will block anything that I'm doing, you know, down in this area, or like I said, stepping out on my front porch, the deer aren't going to see me. So just to give more cover, make them feel a little safer. This area back in here, you know, this is the neighbor's property. This is a little open spot right here, like a little pie shape. This area to the north is mostly where a lot of the big bucks come from. You know, this is where we see them all.
Yeah.
There's an opening right here because the neighbor comes in here and he mows this path back in here. And there's a spot about right in here. There's a couple of them in this corner. The deer really like to use, that's their travel corridor right there. Like this year, we saw most of the deer coming in and out of these paths right here. So this is getting kind of thin through here. So I'm probably going to do some tall grass through this area here. Probably the whole entire area, but not through those areas there. I want to leave those open to where they still can see before they even get out to the field. They can see if there's anything out there before they make that step out there. Same in this corner too. So then we still have the deer coming from each direction. Now this was something that I wanted to ask you, because your stands right here, this is up into probably right in here from the road. This is a very narrow strip of woods. It's just right in the fence line because this is the ag field.
Yeah.
And then once you get down into here, this kind of goes out as a little wooded draw.
It's probably what, 50 yards wide, maybe?
Probably not even that. Yeah, it's probably not even that. Probably 10 to 15 for the most. So I wanted to ask you if you wanted any tall grass in this area for like you walking in to your stand. You could walk, if there happened to be deer out in here, you could, come up and walk behind that tall grass so they don't see you. And then it also works the same for when you're coming out of your stand. You had several times, you had decoy out there, there's deer out, and I've had several times. Yeah, there's deer out there in the field. I mean, you have to wait until it gets dark because you don't want to blow them out of the field.
Yeah.
So then if you had that tall screen in there, you could, kind of slip down out of your stand and get behind that grass to get out of there, that tall stuff, so they don't see you. Because I'm going to do the same thing around the buck hut here. I'm going to do tall grass all the way around this thing so I don't have the same problem. Because I've had several times too where deer were out in here, and here I am going into my stand, and boom.
So you're saying like in here, we do that line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And however far you want them to go, we could do tall grass over here too, just as your screen.
Okay, it's not gonna hurt.
Because this is pretty much going to be still open. It's just going to be in a different crop.
Right.
So this is going to be, actually, it's going to be wider. It's just kind of hard to do with my drawing here. It'll be a pretty wide, tall grass there too, to block as we're coming down here, blocking me getting into my stand too. So I think that pretty well covers all the areas where I wanted to do tall grass. I may do some other spots if I see I need to. What do you think of that? I think that'd be enough coverage as far as cover to block
No, yeah, I like
from
that a lot.
spooking deer. And that's one of the biggest things is, in the off season, it's not going to hurt a few times if you're going outside and deer are out there and you spook them. It's
Right.
the biggest thing is once your plots are growing, you do not want to spook them off your plots because it'll take over a week before they ever come back. Sometimes a lot longer than that. So that's why I want to decrease that by getting some of this tall grass in here to eliminate that.
We definitely need I have this one.
So
Yeah, no. These two are probably the most crucial, just because there's always stuff going on over here.
yeah, and this part here, I haven't made actually both of these plots here, I haven't made 100% decision on exactly what I want to put there yet. I was thinking I was just going to put beans in this big open area, maybe even here.
I know Mom had talked about putting some trees she was wanting here.
Well, we did plant one big spruce tree right here. Yeah, I mean, she wants something down through there. I don't know what.
Yeah.
That's why I wasn't going to get too carried away over here just because of that. So,
Right.
so anyway, come spring, in May, this whole area here, I'm going to put in buckwheat. I don't know if you know too much about buckwheat.
I know people eat it, and it's
It's
tastes
a
like
cereal.
shit.
It's a cereal. Yeah, it grows a grain head. It gets 3, 4, 5 feet tall.
Most people don't like it. It's what I've heard.
I'm not going to go out there and try it right off the stem. That's for sure. But yeah, that's what it is. The cereal grain. But it's good for deer like it as it's growing. Turkeys love the grain off of it. Doves, quail. I mean, just all of them love that grain off of it. But the biggest thing for it's a cover crop is what it is. So, granted, May and stuff is usually when people are planting their beans and their corns and stuff like that. And that's just not what I'm going to do because I'm going to put in my own cover crop, which the buckwheat is going to create it's going to grow so thick that you won't have to spray it. So once it gets good and established, then it drowns out all the weeds on the ground.
Does that like transition into like plants per acre? Like it's super close together or what?
Oh yeah, it's thick.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's really thick. And depending on when you plant it and when you want to plant your fall crop, you could actually do buckwheat because it grows really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Within 10 to 12 weeks, it's at maturity.
Wow.
So then you can do whatever you want to with it. You could bale it, brush hog it, whatever. But to eliminate having to work any ground, we'll let the buckwheat grow to maturity. And even if I have to, plant it again before fall season, then I will. Because then what you want to do is that buckwheat, once you go into your fall crop, the buckwheat, you'll go in there with your fall brassicas and whatever you're going to plant in your fall. And while the buckwheat's still standing, still green, you can hand seed it right over top of all that seed, or right over top of all that buckwheat. It'll just fall to the ground, and because like I said, most of your weeds will be killed out, so everything down on the bottom should be mostly your soil. It should be exposed in a lot of places.
That'd be nice.
So you get that get your fall crop down to the soil, and then you go through with you can use anything, an ATV, with a roller, compactor, cultivator, or not a cultipacker, and just run over the buckwheat and just lay that buckwheat all the way over on the ground to where it's flat. Run all that over, and then go through with whether it's your glyphosate or Buccaneer or whatever. Spray all that because you want to kill out the buckwheat, kill out the buckwheat. And then that once that starts dying out, that'll basically be like a straw on top of all your seed too. It help hold in moisture once it dries out, and then your fall crop will grow right through that buckwheat.
That's another good point to make. Like going back to what I'd already said about like keeping your costs low with like doing it like this. Like not like I understand that you have every piece of equipment you could possibly freaking need, but most of the guys that like are doing this on a lease or something like that, like not having to own or rent or borrow. That's some pretty good win.
Yeah.
But anyways, all the equipment costs and stuff like that. Like
Oh,
if you do it off
absolutely.
a 4-wheeler or something like that, that's
Yeah,
definitely
if you
another
didn't want to
benefit.
have to spend a lot of money, you could do it very cheap.
Yeah.
It may cause you a lot more work, take a little longer, be
Right.
a little harder, but you could, ATVs, lawnmower rollers,
Yeah.
backpack
exactly.
sprayers, a lot of hand
stuff.
seeders,
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah, it'd be good for, and even people that don't even have that much to plant, small quarter-acre plots, or heck, even if you had this much to plant, you could still do all this without big, heavy equipment.
Right.
Granted, I have it, and I'm going to use some of it, but
Right. No,
So-
that's cool.
it's going to change a lot of what I do because now some of the stuff I'm not going to have to use near as much. Like my disc, I used to disc all this. I ain't gonna be doing that as much anymore.
No, I like that a lot.
So anyway, this area here, it'll be in buckwheat. It'll be the same. This area here, I'm thinking I'm gonna put this long strip here in corn.
You're more of a barrier too.
Yeah, it'll be a barrier, and then that I'll just end up leaving in all year long. So that food will stay there. You know, I'm not gonna take it out, let the deer eat it, wildlife, whatever. And then this area here, I'm gonna have this in buckwheat too. Actually, I'll write this on here. I'll have that in buckwheat too because I want to. I'm gonna do things different this year too, and you're just now finding out about this. So this will be a fall food plot too. So since this past year, I mean, it was near the end of season and then after season, bow season. We saw so many deer up here. I mean, 12 to 15 deer on a night, and we've never seen that before. So I'm wanting to, we'll do this, and then even once I take my sunflowers out after dove season, then I'm gonna go in with this with a cover crop for wintertime, just so there's always something to whether it's help holding the soil together, because all this stuff isn't laying perfectly flat. Some of the stuff's rounded to help hold the soil in place. But anyway, this spot here, it's actually the stand here is actually it's an old grain wagon that
The funny thing, I actually saw one. A guy was scrapping on the way up here, and I was like,
oh man,
should I flag him down? We could build another one. But yeah.
Yeah, I took the whole box off of the grain wagon, built the floor, we'll have to take a picture of that too.
Yeah.
Basically turn it into a hunting blind that you can roll wherever you want. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to move that up into here once it dries out enough so that the wildlife can start getting used to that too. Then we'll have a stand here that you can hunt out of because this, like I said, this area is really thin and there's not any big trees in here that you could put a regular stand on.
I think that's where I misunderstood you earlier, and you said like 15 yards. Like to here, it's like 15 yards, but here I know it's
thicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about the wrong parts.
Yeah, I said from the county road to up into here.
Yeah, so that's really thin, but then like where my stand is, it
right
goes,
here.
yeah, probably 50,
this
60
is all woods here.
yards across. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I would definitely put box blind there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, shoot a crossbow out of it, muzzle loader, all that, you'd be close enough for that.
Well, and like I said, there's no trees to put a deer stand on here, and then any of the woods down here is too far away.
Yeah.
So you'd have to do some kind of ground blind or something, and we've got that, so we might as well use it, and then it would be easy to access too. So
yeah, I like that thing.
And then your scent would be covered. So
cool.
So anyway, in the areas where the buckwheat, we'll do that. That'll be the spring cover crop. And then once I want to go in with my fall crop, like I said, we'll go through here. We'll sow that down, roll the buckwheat over, and then that'll be the fall crop. So this area here, I'm gonna do brassicas. I'm gonna spell it right. I don't have my glasses on. Can't see what I'm writing. Sorry. This area here, because you have to separate these two, this is going to be oats, peas, and we might throw in some beans lightly in that.
Is that like would that have to be sectioned, or will the beans grow in with that?
It'll grow in.
Cool.
Because the beans you'd only do like 25 pounds per acre. So it's not very thick,
and just like grow spotty, I guess.
It'd be more spread out than like if you actually drilled in beans
Gotcha.
Because it's all going to be broadcasted by hand. So all three of them, you take all three of them and mix them together, and then put them in your hand seeder, and then just broadcast them out.
One thing about that, you wouldn't want like any turnips or anything like that in it.
That's over here.
Oh, okay.
That's the brassicas.
I didn't know what brassica meant.
Oh, sorry.
I was waiting for you to explain
that.
Yeah,
brassicas is your turnips, your radishes,
Gotcha.
your sugar beets, all them big leafed plants. That's your brassicas.
Okay.
But that's the thing is you can't plant these two together because they compete.
Which
So
is why the one year we got all the
yes,
oats
well,
and stuff like that, and then this year we got that makes sense.
That, and I think I might have overseeded it a little bit, but didn't help. But
still, I would imagine
yes.
that had a big part to do with it. Then.
Yes,
Gotcha.
Which is another thing too. If you're buying fall food plot seed, you really need to read the tag on the bags. If the tag says and it's usually at the bottom, it'll say weed seed. If there's a high percentage of weed seed in that, you do not want it, because in all this here, you don't want any weeds.
Right.
So if your brassica bag of whatever it is of your turnips or whatever has, I don't know, 20% or even less than that of weed seed, you don't want it. You want something that doesn't have any weed seed at all, because you're going in here and you're spraying this to kill the weeds out.
Right.
If you put weed seed in there with your brassicas, guess what's going to happen? The weeds are going to take over your brassicas, and then it's not going to grow. So you really got to pay attention to those tags to see what's in your seed. So you really want, with your brassicas, you want just sugar beets, turnips, and actually I guess there's rape too. There's several different kinds, but that's what you want in there. You don't want any of the other crap in your seed.
I gotcha.
So that's why that's being separated there. And then this up here, I'll probably do this in a brassica too.
So is I guess the goal with the buckwheat to get it in like as early as you can, or?
It does not really, because like I said, it grows within 10 to 12 weeks to its full maturity. So if you figure you plant it in May, you go 10 to 12 weeks. What's that put you at?
Yeah, pretty much deer season.
So you can only hope that it turns out that way.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So then your brassicas, usually in this area, the end of July, beginning of August, in that area somewhere. I wouldn't go too far back in July, but the end of July into the beginning of August is when you want to start getting your brassicas in the ground. So then that's when you'd want to roll your buckwheat down, or put that seed in and roll your buckwheat down and put that in.
That'd work a lot better, because like last year about that time is when you got stuff in way earlier than anyone else, so it was like we didn't have anything pretty much rolling into deer season. That stuff would just be getting good and going just in time. One question I did have, so wherever you end up putting this box blind for that stuff, like what would be the plan for getting into there?
You'd have to come this way. So, because that's the thing too, is you don't want to, there's nowhere to park. That'd be a long walk all the way around here. I mean, you could if you wanted to. But since, you're going to be here hunting, if we're here together, you're going to be going to your stand. So we just keep if we have to spread scent, keep it all in the same spot instead of dispersing it. So we just come up to here and come down. And even, if I gotta plant more
that's kind of
switchgrass in here as a cover.
Switchgrass maybe around here.
This isn't on here, and it's, you can't tell. This is a bad area that really washed out. So there's some really ditches that drain through here. Yeah. So we don't plant. There's fescue. There's grass in there, basically just holding our soil together. So we don't want to work any of that up. But there's no doubt on some of these edges, like even here, I could go up on the edge of this clover field and put some tall grass in here. Okay. That would help, block that also.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Because that'd be the same thing, like this year. All these deer were up in here. So at nighttime, well, you gotta get, if your stand's over here, you gotta get out of there. Right. So that may help. So.
Okay.
So you got your brassicas planted. Probably 4 to 6 weeks after you plant your brassicas in these spots, I would go through and put in some winter rye. You just broadcast that over top of that. You can take a cultipacker, kind of, nothing too big, and smash that down, get that seed in the ground. After the buckwheat, you may already have, a lot of areas that's already, the soil's exposed, so the seed's going to go. As long as you get that contact, for the most part, you're going to get that seed to grow. So in this area, we'll put winter rye. If you can't get winter rye, wheat works also, but rye winter rye grows, and it's rye grain. It's not rye grass. That's one thing you gotta know. Because you don't want that grass in there. It's a weed.
Right.
So it's got to be the rye grain. So the rye grain, I'll just say winter rye or rye. That's what you're gonna bring into your spring next year. So just like the wheat, you want it to grow up in the fall. That'll also give the deer something to eat as the brassicas start to diminish. Then throughout the next year, and then once that rye or the wheat grows up the following year, then you can go in there and spray it, kill it out. Or what you can also do is, if you go back in with buckwheat again, just hand seed that stuff in over that top of that standing rye, and do the same thing. Roll it over, and then spray it, kill that out, and then your seed will grow right back up. It's all part of not having to disc, hurting,
so
touching the ground. Yeah. So, but the winter rye grows in a lot of terrible soils, is why it would be so much better. And these brassicas in these areas, because what it's growing, a big turnip or a big sugar beet or creates a nitrogen pocket in there also, so that's helping the soil. And then once you get all that composting matter after a while, then you're going to get worms in there. The worms are going to help the soil. A lot of it's just to help the soil too.
Yeah, that's really
and then your stuff will grow a heck of a lot better.
I haven't heard that too often about focusing on the soil that much for continuing your game plots. But...
Yeah, well, and I can't draw a picture, but if you think about it, okay, if you take your tractor out there with your disc and you disc up the top layer of ground, okay, then you get some rains, good heavy rains on it. It doesn't even have to be heavy, just several rains. What that soil is doing is it's compacting on the top. So all the ground up underneath is underneath of what you just compacted isn't even getting broke loose anyway. So it's getting so hard in both areas that your I can't draw this if you can see it. So this is the top layer of your ground. This is your plant, and this is your root system wanting to grow. Well, you're only fluffing up a few inches of ground here with your disc. Well, this layer that's underneath of that is so hard.
Can't get rooted.
Yeah, your roots are going to hit that. Well, then you can't get a good root growth.
And whatever's growing next to that's going to be interfered by that root system. And
Right. Yeah, they're going to be too compacted that they'll hurt one another too.
Makes sense.
So that'll end up, like I said, creating a hard surface right through here that it's just not very good, because you need the moisture needs to get down in there better. The air needs to get down in there better. So if you don't disc this up, and then you start doing it this way, and after several years of this stuff laying down, like I said, it's gonna hold moisture in the ground a lot longer, a lot better. You'll actually start to get your little air pockets down in the soil, that now this whole entire area has now loosened up, which is what you want for your good root growth and all that.
Right.
And then the worms, once it starts, the worms will start up in here, doing what they're doing. Well, then your worm population is going to grow, and then by them, their manure in that stuff, before you know it, you're going to keep getting deeper and deeper on how good your soil is actually getting. So it takes
awesome.
several years for that to happen, but you got to start somewhere.
Right. No, and yeah, in turn, I'm sure the healthier plant you can grow, the better it's going to be nutritionally for everything that's eating it. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
So that's those areas. Like I
the,
said, I don't know what I want to do here, but
like the whitetail mad scientist.
I've turned into that.
Yeah.
Well, because now I'm here, and that's what I want to devote my time to. So
yeah, hey, I'm all for it.
I like hunting for big bucks. I like hunting deer, period. That's my passion, deer and turkey. And I don't know if you want to get into the turkey aspect of another day with this too, but
if you know how it affects it, I mean.
Well, the buckwheat, like I said, the grains, and the other thing with buckwheat is it is a very big pollinator. So bees and stuff. So look out, once you're getting stung and lit up out there, but yeah. It's a good pollinator, but the turkeys love that stuff. I've been doing a lot of turkey research too, to see what we need to do to make our property here better for the turkeys and deer, which basically, it's just, we got to keep these edges growing with some grass. You need a oh my goodness, what's the word? Can't remember now. Anyway, you need it soft here. You don't want any grasses that are really tall. A hen, and that's what it's going to take to increase your turkey population is the hens. It's not the toms, it's the hens. So your hens, when they lay their eggs, they want the grass to be 14, 16, 18 inches tall. So that way when they're sitting on their nest, they can still look out and see if there's any predators around.
Makes sense.
So it's a soft edge. That's it. So you want a soft edge. That's what it's called.
Okay.
Just a light grass, because and it's usually on the edges of fields or woods and stuff like that the turkeys they'll nest. 10 to 15 yards off of it or into an edge is where they'll do that. But like I said, the biggest thing is they want to be able to see because of predators. That way they can protect themselves.
Yeah, I'd say honestly, like that'll be really where we see like the effects of this, because like that's something we never had any much luck with. It's like holding turkeys to this ground. Like the only time we see turkeys really is when they're mating, looking to breed hens and stuff like that, and they're crossing through.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really coming out here to eat or anything like that.
Well, and Missouri's turkey season is at the peak of the breeding season. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know
It
that.
is at the peak. Yeah. So before season actually starts, the turkeys are already laying eggs.
Huh.
Yeah. And
Damn it, Missouri.
And let me throw this at you. So the video I had of the 10 hens last year.
Yeah.
In the Milo. Okay, so there's 10 hens that we know are here. And actually we saw probably the same ones.
The year before I had like 13.
We had them out there deer season, or after deer season too. So we've got 10 hens right there. So one hen will lay 10 to 12 eggs. So you figure that right there.
Yeah, but they have a low survivability rate.
They do. Yeah, they do. But just think about that. They lay 10 to 12 eggs.
That's a lot of eggs.
We had 10 hens here. Okay, we've had this property for 13 years, I think. 13 years. You've been here, hunted a lot. You've seen a lot of turkeys, hunted turkey seasons, deer seasons, all that. So during the times after turkey seasons, whether it be on cameras or whether you were out there on foot, have you ever seen any poults?
Never.
I haven't either. So that's what I mean. You figure 10 hens, 10 to 12 eggs, and not seeing any poults. That's not good.
Yeah. Do they really travel that far though when they've got them that small?
Well, no, they don't.
So that's the thing. It's just due to not holding them here.
The hens?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that's what I was getting at, is I hadn't seen any poults.
Right.
Whether predators are getting them, and I know the survival rate is really low.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of it, which is why we started doing a lot of the trapping too. Eliminating some of these animals that are putting a hurting on them.
I don't even think I mentioned turkeys as being one of the main reasons I was trapping in my video. I was like, small game. Stuff
Yeah,
like
you
that.
didn't.
Yeah. Like I want to shoot a big old gobbler.
Yeah. So I think I've pretty well covered everything. I don't know if you have any more questions, but that's pretty much what I want to do.
What about these?
I haven't decided yet. I don't know what I want to put in there. Like I said, this I'd be more apt to do something more like this here. This I don't know, because it's over here by the neighbors, by our driveway. We don't hunt over here. And
You're gonna leave this in fescue? Like,
I think so. Just whether
is that considered like a
turkeys-
soft grass
yeah.
or a soft edge? I
Well,
guess?
as long as you keep it to a certain height. I mean, it's not thick. Fescue, it grows pretty tall, but you can go
that'd be
through there
good because we've seen a lot of turkeys come through there.
Yeah, so I was just gonna leave that in grass, and whether the deer might bed in there too. I'd leave that alone.
I'm surprised that you don't want Milo anywhere.
Why?
That seemed like it worked really well last year.
Next year that could change. I don't know. Like I said, I wanted to try this year and see how this pans out, and come that year, there may not be any more doing this corn and doing beans, or planting with a big planter.
Might just all be stuff
I'd
like
sell
that.
all that.
Jeez.
Yeah, and just do this. I mean, if this really pans out, yeah, that's what I'm game for.
I mean, that stuff's always going to be cheaper than those things too, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
I mean, the worst. Well, I don't know. You know, these seeds are pretty expensive.
really?
Yeah. I got my list here somewhere. I can get to that real quick. Because I started got to figure out how much this stuff costs. So,
Yeah. Present it to the boss.
so in what I wanted to plant in buckwheat, it's probably going to cost me about $350 in the seed. The Brassica, about 150. The winter rye, and this isn't going to be accurate because I'm going to plant more because I don't even know if I said it. After the sunflowers are out, I'm going to plant
Yeah, you said
something in there, winter rye. So that's the thing too. A lot of this stuff I don't want any ground that's going to be open all year long. So whether I come through and like these other areas have to plant winter rye just to have something in there, especially too to help soil, because like right now, your mom and I took that walk, and with all this, we've had a lot of snow here lately. Within 2 weeks, we've had probably 20 inches of snow here.
Yeah.
And when this stuff, it was 70 degrees yesterday, that stuff melting off, the stuff running is like a river. Well, that stuff running, guess where your soil is going?
Right.
My real estate's ending up on the neighbor's real estate, and his, it just keeps going and going. So, it's something to help hold the soil too. What else do I have here?
You got your other costs?
The oats, peas, and beans, that's probably going to be about $220. So all that adds up because it's not like you're planting a big area. Well, I'm planting a bigger area of it, but a lot of people wouldn't have to. If you're doing a quarter acre, half acre, a lot of the bags will cover just that. So
Right.
I'm doing quite a bit, but
So, do you have a total yet, or?
out of everything, as far as seeds, it's probably going to be around $1,400.
Which
In
weren't
seed.
you're significantly more than that last year, weren't you?
Well, and the other thing with last year is, and I know this year I haven't checked the price, but I've heard last year I fertilized all this. Rented a buggy from co-op, used my tractor, and spread quite a bit. It was $1,700 to fertilize all that. So this year I'm going to be using different fertilizer. Actually, I've got my soil test kit sitting over here, so as soon as it gets a little drier, start testing and see what we've got here. So that's another expense too, is just if you have to fertilize. And that's another thing with all this, you're going to have to test your soil before you do any of this.
Right.
You got to have your pHs right and your nitrogen, and potassium. So
Well, those differ like significantly from like one area to the next.
what's that?
Like your soil composition, like
Yeah.
really.
Yep.
So this could be completely different than over here.
Depending on what you had in there, yeah.
Gotcha.
Because some of it uses more nitrogen, and some of this you put in there and it replenishes the nitrogen.
Makes
Which
sense.
is a lot of what a lot of this is going to do too. Especially the Brassicas, because it's going to create that nitrogen pocket in there for the next year too. So then
Yeah.
you won't your fertilizer. You won't. You may not after a period of time of maintaining this the correct way, you won't have to fertilize it at all.
That's awesome.
Because the organic manner of doing all this the right way is going to be right there already.
Yeah, so maybe that's kind of the big picture here is like, if you're planting stuff to be an effective hunter, like having it to where it can continue and sustain itself to keep your costs at a minimum. I think that's one of the biggest things with this. It's just, one, the plants are great for sustaining the wildlife habitat and whatnot, but they're also great for sustaining your pocketbook.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool. I really like that.
And one thing we didn't mention either is this property here it's a pass-through property. I mean, up until now, it's a pass-through property because there's a lot of hardwoods back in here, and that's, like I said, that's where most of the bucks, deer come from anyway. And there's a lot of hardwoods this direction too. So, if we can plant this, come hunting season, well, this ag field over here, it ain't gonna have nothing in it. It may have some stuff on the ground, but when you got a lot of greens growing over here, well, guess what the deer's gonna want more of?
Right.
It's gonna want the greens. It's not gonna care about this stuff over here.
Right.
So then you're gonna draw that deer population to your property.
Yep.
And then once they know that stuff's here, they're not going to travel far from this when they go to bed, because they're going to know, okay, I'll get up and they'll rummage in the woods on saplings and that in the morning, but then boy, they're gonna hit this in the evening and load up on groceries.
That's awesome. One other thing too that I wanted to mention was like those costs that you're comparing to last year too, were also after like hyperinflation. So
Yeah, which
it
I
would've
think
been
I was trying to get into that about the fertilizer too. I've heard it's gone up a lot in price. So I paid $1,700 last year. It'd be a heck of a lot more this year, I guarantee you.
yeah. So
Just
something
like
else to consider.
just like the glyphosate, more than doubling in price. It's
one other thing I wanted to ask about was the trees, apple trees,
what about them?
and berries, bushes, all that stuff you said.
Oh, well, I didn't get the berries yet because they didn't have any that would cross pollinate.
Oh,
But I did get. Like I said, I have one apple tree right here. I was able to pick up one more, and this is just right now. I'm going to end up getting more. I think your mom and I sat down the other night, and we got like 40 more trees coming. 'Cause this
40?
Yeah, this is another thing
we have
too.
a fucking orchard.
Well, I told her, now that we're here, and I've seen because of being here every day and being able to watch the deer and the wildlife, I don't want all this as open as it is anymore.
Yeah,
So wherever I want to, I'm going to plant some trees
cool.
and some of it's,
I'm all for that.
and get some oaks out there, some white oaks you can. They're going to drop nuts. That's for the deer. I've been wanting to get American chestnuts because deer they'll just load up on the chestnuts. And
They're fast growing too, right?
yeah, and they'll drop a lot of nuts. The tonnage is just unreal.
I guarantee there's not any of those around here.
Well, there's not any American chestnuts because years ago somebody brought in a Chinese chestnut tree, and the Chinese chestnut tree had a disease that killed out all the American species.
Yeah.
So now you can't even get American. It's all Chinese. Chinese are hybrids. And I don't want that, because if there would happen to be any somewhere, I don't want to kill them out.
Right.
I'm not going to take that chance. But I'd really love to have a chestnut tree, and I just don't want that.
So, like all your seed and stuff, that's looking at ordering it all from the same place, or is that different places?
It's probably going to be a couple different places because some of the places don't have it in stock.
Gotcha. So
And I don't want to have to rely on, okay, how long is it going to take to get it? I want this stuff in hand.
Right.
Like the switchgrass, like I said, it's getting harder to get. I know a lot more people are using it, and I don't know where they're getting it from, but I heard this year is going to be harder to get.
Okay.
And then anyway, the apple trees, I got another apple tree, picked up 2 pear trees, so we're going to get them planted out in here, spread them out because they have to cross pollinate, so they gotta be there. Yeah, it's.
I love pears.
And I tell you, well, you can see the trees right there. Look how tall they are already.
Oh yeah.
So the 2 pear trees are the tallest. The apple one's a little shorter, but they're already 8-9 feet tall.
Pear trees grow really tall too. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'd say, but as tall as that thing is.
Charlie had one on his farm. That thing, you couldn't even reach the fruit. They're way
Yeah.
up there. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
So it's
You don't
just,
have, those are just going to be kind of wherever? You haven't really figured that?
yeah, I haven't designated a space yet. I mean, they're going to
Well,
be
you
out.
said over here,
They're going to
but
be
yeah.
out in here somewhere. I just don't know where yet. Because that's the thing too. If you want to plant fruit trees where you're hunting, you want to put them where your deer stands are, because they're going to come to feed on the fruit. And like I said, with the ones that I've got, they have to cross pollinate, so you don't want to put them too far apart. I mean, I could put one over here and it'd still be fine because of wind, but yeah.
I'd be really interested to see, just from a different perspective on that. So like, they tell you for like humans, like the way I eat, like if I want to consume carbohydrates, it'd be better to consume fruit than it would be to eat vegetables, because vegetables create like a lot of toxins and stuff like that. They're naturally evolving to become more resistant to being eaten, like we talked about earlier. So that I wonder, like nutritionally, if fruit would be better for deer and wildlife than vegetables would in the same kind of aspect.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how they'd figure that out.
I don't know what it does for deer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't really considered.
Yeah. Well, the other thing with the fruit trees too is not only do you want them near your stand, you want them near your greens food supply too.
Okay.
So you don't like, I don't want to just plant that apple tree over here. Just
Right.
you want to get it over here where your food is, and that's because you're going to bring some deer into that apple tree or that pear tree to.
Oh, you can bring all kinds of stuff into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Squirrels, raccoons, coyotes.
Maybe sitting out there in the buck hut popping some squirrels.
Another thing to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I tolerated fruit. Y'all are gonna have all kinds of. Figure that one out.
You can't eat it. It's for the deer.
Jeez. You're at 40 freaking trees. There's gonna be plenty for the deer.
They're not all going to be fruit trees. So, like I said, some of them are going to be oaks, white oaks,
Yeah.
that have acorns, and some of them just going to be shade trees. Maples, some soft maples,
Cool.
because they grow really fast too. The maples.
Maple syrup too.
I guess you could.
Find the ones that you can do that with.
We'll add that to the list.
I use a lot of that too.
But you got to purify all that. I don't know what all that entails. I've seen
Do
it.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Because you have to I think you have to cook it and boil it.
Oh. It's like
Something.
sap or what? I don't
Yeah.
even know how it's made.
Well, it comes right out of the tree.
What?
You get the maple right out of the tree. It runs like a liquid.
Yeah, it's like a sappy
But you still have to,
stuff.
I guess.
Oh.
I mean, I've never done it, seen it.
Gotcha.
I've just watched people doing it on videos,
Oh.
but then I've seen them actually cooking it too. So I guess you gotta purify it. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I'll just get the syrup from the store.
Yeah. Let someone else handle that.
So I think I pretty well got covered what I wanted to get covered.
All right. Cool.
So
So when people want to ask you questions about what they should do with theirs, how should they contact you? An email or something, or Instagram?
how do you want to do that?
Well, I have to facilitate it.
Well, this is your.
I guess you can
Fine.
reach out to the Buck Hut on our emails on the website and Instagram.
We can do that for now, and then if
Yeah, we'll do that for now, and then I can just facilitate it to you. And then once you're running Buck Hut, Mad Scientist, Game Plot, whatever branch of this, then they can contact you directly.
Well, and I guarantee you, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't say that to deal with this, and just
Or we'll think of more
stuff that I've watched
but,
too.
yeah.
That if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, I've spent. He hasn't been here for it, but I tell you what, my wife, I've drove her nuts just listening and watching, learning from
Researching.
people.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of hours doing it. Got a lot of stuff written down. I'm not perfect. This is my first year trying it, but I have a good feeling it's going to work just by seeing it. So we're going to give it a whirl. And
Think about it, like this is going to be the first year that, like we hunted more than we ever had last year. This year's going to be like even more now. Because like first part of last year, like turkey season stuff, I was still in college. You all were building a house.
But you don't know that. If this really takes off, you might get that big buck out there sooner and take care of it a lot sooner, and then you're not hunting the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's the goal. Honestly, I'm okay with that. So I watch other podcasts.
I'm fine with that too.
Other guys are like, man, I just don't want my season to be over. I'm like, I like to eat deer and I like to look at them on the wall. So I don't really give a shit when I kill it.
Yeah, well, I can tell you because I moved the deep freeze the other day and looked inside there, and we need some more deer meat.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because I'm about to take some with me too.
Well, that's going to be the thing too, and taking some does early season.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about that too. Stack them up.
Yeah. And to that, I won't shoot a doe during the rut or even after the rut. If I'm going to shoot a doe, I'm going to do it early bow season. And the reason being is I don't want to kill a doe that may have had the potential to already have been bred.
Yeah.
She could be carrying around a big monster buck. You don't know. So, I mean, I realize a lot of people that they rely on that deer meat and they just have to, which I understand that, but we don't rely on that. Like I said, we've still got meat left over, but like I said, I just don't want to take one that's
Yeah.
been bred. So
Yep, that's how I feel on that too. Maybe, and that may just be too part of the reason why we feel like that's just kind of the numbers we have here. Maybe someone has does to the roof, really just not going to care about that. I don't know.
yeah,
Did like the research you're doing, stuff like that? Had they mentioned anything about that, or
about taking the does.
yeah, like doe management or anything?
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, which you get both ways.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know.
sure. Yeah. I just didn't know if one was consistent over the other. All right.
I mean, the biggest thing is if you're gonna take a doe, you're gonna want to take one of the old mature does. That way you can just kind of mix up your genetics. You know, let these younger does come in with new genetics.
Yeah.
As they get older, you start taking out your old does, just to keep that genetic
Right.
all mixed up.
Yeah.
So you don't get the same ones like we seem to still be getting.
Yeah, well, yeah, or if you get them too many times, they start growing sick and fucked up and everything
Yeah.
else. So
Yeah.
I don't really want that.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Any last thoughts?
no, I'm good.
All right. That's the end of this one. It's the longest one yet.